Hey, let's do some stewed tomatoes today. I've already done some of the work ahead of time. I've peeled my tomatoes, and I have a whole nother video on that, so you'll have to look for that. But you can peel them any way you want to. They just need to be peeled tomatoes. And I've gone ahead and chopped up my peppers. Now, stewed tomatoes is basically a mix of tomatoes and peppers and onions, and you can also use celery. We don't care for celery, and so we just use peppers and onions. I use stewed tomatoes all the time. In fact, a lot of times if something just calls for, a regular jarred tomato, sometimes I just throw in stewed tomatoes, just depending on what the recipe is. But I use it to make spaghetti sauce, hot dish, chili. There's just all kinds of stuff that you can use stewed tomatoes for. It's a really good base product to have in your pantry. And so I do this every year. Tomatoes grow well here, and peppers grow really well here. And so I always have lots of peppers. So I have all of my canning supplies out. I've got my not my water bath canner. This has to go in a pressure canner. In fact, let's talk about that for a minute. Now, this recipe has not been tested for a water bath canner. There are recipes out there that have been tested for a water bath canner. They've got acidification in there and that kind of thing. So please don't assume that you can adapt this recipe for a water bath. This one has to be in a pressure canner because I don't have water bath processing instructions for it. So just be sure and use a pressure canner for this particular recipe.
So just a quick note, this video was actually recorded years ago using a recipe from an older Ball Blue Book. Ball's canning recipe, my original source, does not include lemon juice. Current recipes always add lemon juice just for a little bit of added acidity. So I am currently opting to include it for added acidity per the National Center for Home Food Preservation Safety recommendations. You may or may not agree, and it's okay. It's a small addition, but in my opinion, it does help keep things safe and shelf stable, so I do suggest adding that.
So I'm going to go ahead and just start heating up these tomatoes, and as soon as they come to a heat and they start simmering a little, then I'm going to go ahead and add my onions and my peppers in there. So it'll take a little bit for that to heat up. I'll be right back. Okay, my tomatoes are hot. They're not boiling yet, but they are heated through. What I did is I had some that were still pretty big. So I use this little chopper tool. If you have a potato masher, that works. This is a food chopper from Pampered Chef, if you need to know what it is. And I just kind of chopped some of those big ones up. It doesn't have to be real fine or anything because it's all going to simmer and cook and get really soft. But I just like to mash them up a little bit with that. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my onions and my pepper. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stir this up and then let this come to a simmer. As soon as it's simmering, we're going to time it for 10 minutes. And then that just lets everything get all heated through and ready to go into the jars. So let's let that happen. Oh, here's a little tip for you. Wide mouth canning jars make really good spoon rests. So we're going to put a lid on this and we're going to let it simmer. Oops. So we're going to put a lid on this and bring it to a simmer and let it simmer for 10 minutes, stirring quite often so that it doesn't stick to the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and pull our jars out and get our jars filled. Okay, we are at a simmer, and I just remembered that I didn't add my salt and my sugar yet, so I'm going to do that right now. So I need 4 teaspoons of canning salt, and you do still need to use canning salt for this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I need 2 tablespoons of sugar, which is not a lot of sugar, and you could probably substitute honey in for this. And let me give this a quick stir. I already set my timer for 10 minutes. And we're going to just wait. Let me turn this down because it does not need to boil hard. It just needs to simmer. Okay, so my tomatoes are nice and heated through. I've simmered them for 10 minutes. And we're going to go ahead and just fill the jars now. Remember, my jars are in here getting warm. This water is hot, but it's not boiling yet. Sometimes these jars are a little warm to handle. If they're too warm to handle, just grab a pot holder or something. I like to do 2 or 3 jars at a time, just like with most anything. You'll see that's kind of a something that I do all the time. Use a canning funnel because this can get messy. Steps. Just 1 scoop at a time. You're going to fill your jar until it's a 1/2 inch headspace. Remember, your tomatoes are hot. They're simmering, so you want to be sure those jars are warmed up. I do mine in the canner.
So this is where I would add lemon juice to the jar, and I would add 2 tablespoons per each quart jar.
A little bit more. Okay, and we'll check that headspace. You use your little tool here. Where are we at? Oh, I need my glasses. Okay, we're right at a 1/2 inch headspace, so we are good. Now I'm going to wipe my rim. This is a liquid, so you don't have to worry about the bubbles as much, but you can do this. Make sure there's no bubbles down in there. Other foods, it's important that you get that all out. And it's important with these too, but it's more liquidy so you don't get bubbles. Make sure those rims are wiped off nice and clean, and then you're going to put your flat lid on. That one was upside down. And you're going to put your ring on. And then it's ready to go in the canner. So my jars are ready to go in the canner. I've got them all in there evenly spaced. Remember, my canner is hot, but it's not boiling yet. The jars are hot with the hot tomatoes. I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on. I'm using my All-American today. So, whoops, where's my mark? So I have to find that mark, and I need to make sure that I line it up. And then I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and make sure everything is even. And then I'm going to screw it down. Turn the heat up, and we're going to bring it to a boil. Now at this point, double check, actually even before this point, double check and make sure that you have the weight for your canner. So I have that here ready to go. I'm going to turn on my heat again and turn it back up to high. Now when it starts boiling, the steam is going to start coming out of this little vent here. So I want to make sure that's out away from my hood, just because my hood happens to be lower. Make sure that I can see my gauge so that when it's processing, I'll be able to watch that and check it, and then make sure I have my weight here. Then you're going to follow the usual canning, pressure canning instructions. Bring it to a boil. You're going to steam it, let it vent for 10 minutes, and then put your weight on. Then you're going to wait again. When it comes to the correct pressure for your elevation, then you're going to process it. Then you're going to start your processing time. Let me look here. My time, I am doing quarts today, and so I'm going to process it for 20 minutes, and I'm at a higher elevation, and so I need to process it at 15 pounds pressure. Remember, for a pressure canner, your elevation is going to change the pressure that you use, but the time should be the same. So pints is 15 minutes, quarts is 20 minutes. I always double check my book, because even though I do this every year and I use the same recipes, I'm not going to have it memorized. I'm going to forget. So always check your book, make sure you're using the right time and the right processing pressure. And then after it's done processing, remember, you're going to let the canner cool all by itself. You don't hurry things along. You don't, pour cold water on it or anything, or a fan or anything like that. When it's completely down to 0 pressure, you're going to take your weight off, wait about 5 or 10 minutes, and then you're going to take your lid off and wait another 5 or 10 minutes. That just slows things down and allows it to depressurize slowly. At that point, you can go ahead and take your jars out and put them on the counter. They may still be bubbling and boiling inside the jars. That's normal. Leave them alone. Don't push on the lids. Don't tighten those bands down, because you'll interfere with that seal. And then when they are completely cool to room temperature, you can go ahead and check your seals. And if everything is sealed up good, then you're good to go. You're going to mark your jars. You might need to rinse them off. They might be a little bit sticky. Usually a rinse is fine. Mark your jars. Make sure you put the date on it, at least the year. And you can even put the recipe on there if you want to, and store them on the shelf. If you have any that don't seal, just put them in the fridge and use them up just like you would any other food in your fridge. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and you have a great day.